we're not kind of a group of people that jump up and down with pom-poms and rah-rah things and say, hey, it's all going to be awesome. Our whole job is to work out, yes, there are things to celebrate, but also we have to take very seriously the challenges. And so quite some years ago, nearly 10 years ago, we started to notice a tendency whereby churches around the world would make really good progress on health. You'd even see growth improvements over the sort of first to second survey and second to third survey. But then as you started to get towards the fourth survey, the progress would start to roll off. Now, this didn't make a lot of sense because they're understanding the principles better, they're applying them, they're experiencing progress, encouraging things, and there's still plenty of headroom to become healthier and to grow further. But nevertheless, they're having a struggle. So did a lot of research around that to dig into what was going on. And the broad picture of it was that in the most part, churches would tend to make what we'd call like organisational progress in the early stages, kind of the low-hanging fruit. If we grease some wheels, adjust a few things, stop the welcomers punching people, all that kind of stuff, you'll start to deal with some stuff and see some forward motion. But the problem was, as soon as it started to come into the picture whereby, or the position in time where you had to grow your people, suddenly the brakes had come on. It had just started to slow down, quite dreadfully. So we kept digging into different things. And, things like discovering that, leaders go backwards in their capacity to lead after about their late 30s. This is deeply troubling. Now, when I presented it, sometimes people say, oh, but you can understand that because, as you get older as a leader, you get sort of tired and worn out. They say, well, should that actually be the case? Well, they'd say, young leaders are full of energy. It's like, well, and how do we kill that from them then? Like, what's actually going on? Why is that taking place? Can you turn to a page in the Bible that points to anything other than increasing fruitfulness, bearing fruit in the courts of the Lord into your old age, and making further progress? Is there any justification for this, apart from the fact that we're really not doing certain things very well? So that's a serious problem at the leadership level. And then you have this thing that was discovered in the early research, and is still the case, that generally speaking, there's not a positive correlation between theological training and church health. It's actually the opposite. The tendency is the higher. This is, of course, exceptions to all these things, of course. Any of you theological trained are, of course, the exception in the room. But generally speaking, the higher the qualification, the less likelihood that they're leading a healthy church. At the very least, that says there's something very dysfunctional about the way we train leaders. There's something really wrong there. Like on day one, do we actually say, by the way, the most important thing you have to be is a disciple of Jesus? Let's get that clear. Now, the second most important thing is you have to make other disciples. Now we'll go on to the ancient Hebrew and every other different thing, because that might be helpful in serving those two things. Probably not. And do we continue it after your studies are finished? So there's huge challenges around that. So it's unsurprising then to realise and discover that church members on average go backwards in faith over time in the average church worldwide. The longer you're part of the church, the less likelihood that you have a vibrant faith and belief in Jesus. This is utterly devastating. This is terrible. But at the same time, it's one of my greatest reasons for hope. Because if you're that bad at something, like the upside is incredible. If you start to do your one job, then suddenly you can make an enormous difference to things. And so this began to make it very clear that we don't have a meaningful understanding of discipleship. In fact, we need a discipleship reality check, which is a book I'm starting to work towards because it synthesizes all of my angst from 25 years and has this wonderful sense of relief about writing such a thing. But so much, even we talk about discipleship, most times we're actually talking about some version of indoctrination. Now, the thing is, indoctrination you can do en masse. You can get a bunch of people in a group to remember or learn certain things and recite certain things, or to at least say that they believe certain things. You cannot generically disciple people. It's impossible to think of the encounters Jesus had with his disciples as, oh, well, I've got a generic message for all of you today, and Thomas, it's the same as a message to you, Peter, that, you're obviously fundamentally different people, but I'm just going to tell you the same thing. So discipleship is such a nuanced thing. You can only picture Jesus looking into the eyes of a person, affirming them deeply, but also challenging them at the deepest level along the way. But realistically around the world, we don't have a meaningful sense of that. One thing we were asked to do, go make disciples of all nations. That's not go make converts. That's not get a bunch of people with their hand in the air. Make students of Jesus, of all nations. And when's Jesus coming back? I don't think it's that soon, because we haven't done our job. Like, we're not even close to doing our job realistically. We won't go into that. I shouldn't have said that, but I think it's true. So we need a discipleship reality check. Now here's the thing. There's three main points that I bring it down to. Do you know what Jesus really likes about you? Oh, Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. Does Jesus like you? Oh, that's a bit weird. That's a bit strange. Jesus would like something about me. He would delight in me in some way. Do you actually know that? Because psychologically, if you're going to be the student of someone that you think views you basically as a worm, then it's going to be very, very difficult to remain under that person's tutelage, because every time you make a mistake, you're going to feel condemned in some way. But if you can sense that Jesus really actually likes something about me, that's a remarkable thing. That's probably at least one part of me being a disciple of his. And the second question just marries the other side. Are you addressing what most troubles Jesus about you? This is not just, oh, I'm doing naughty stuff. Like, what breaks his heart about you? He says, you're grinding through life, in second gear, struggling with these different things. I don't want that for you. I want life in all its fullness for you. I want something greater. This troubles me. What can we do to change that? What can we do so that you start to move towards all I hope that you will experience? And are you aware of what that thing is? And are you applying disciplines in the everyday to grow in that area more towards the likeness of Jesus? Very foundational. Now, the third one just ties it together. Are you helping someone else say yes to those two questions? That's it. If you're making disciples, then that's what you're trying to help someone to be able to do. Now, this came about and started to get clarified working with our Russian team a couple of years ago, and they wanted me to talk to them about what's the best mode or best way of structuring a local church in different ways. And I said, well, just before we go there, we should actually talk about who you should have in your leadership, not just how you should actually structure it up. And so I kind of listed these points out. I said, so this, people that know something that Jesus likes about them, really clear about, something that he's troubled about in their life, and that they're helping someone else answer those things. And dear Leonard, our partner in Russia, he said, but Adam, none of our church leadership teams would be able to say that. And he said, we wouldn't have any church leadership teams if that was the case. And I said, well, just don't be too harsh on yourselves, because there's very few leadership teams around the world in any church that could probably all say yes to those questions. But yes, now you're looking at the issue, because if you're just trying to rearrange the deck chairs on the doomed Titanic, it's not going to go well. You're going to need to actually make sure your leaders are at least disciples of Jesus. We'll get to the rest of your congregation, who should also be disciples of Jesus, but at least those sitting at the leadership table should be clear on these fundamental things. So let me just throw the question out there. Looking at those three questions, picture your entire leadership team. Who could say with confidence that all the people that sit around the leadership table could answer yes to those three basic questions of being a disciple of Jesus? Hand up if you could say reasonably yes. Okay. Yes, we have a little bit of work to do. We'll get to that. But the remarkable thing is, and this is what we've been working towards for 25 years, is that with the likes of the discipleship tests and things like that, we can bring a person to the place of being able to answer yes to all of those questions within a couple of hours. So we can turn that around very, very quickly. It's not that it's difficult. It's the Chesterton thing, G.K. Chesterton. He said, Christianity has not so much been tried and found wanting as thought difficult and left untried. And discipleship has not been tried and found wanting. It's just been thought difficult and left untried. It's actually not that difficult, But if you're so busy with everything else and forgetting the most fundamental thing you're asked to do and be, well, of course it's going to be difficult because you're not even doing it. You're not even attempting to do it. And so I can't wait till we have reasonable numbers and you guys are in a prime position to really spearhead this with the momentum you have. When we start to do this, we don't have the slightest idea what that's going to lead to. We're talking about, could we turn the army around? That's a trivial question. Good gracious. Like, you start to do that, just strap yourself in. Like, that's just crazyville we get to at that point.